browser. I'm a bit of a Safari woman myself.
Okay, I'm a Safari lady as well. I'm happen to be on Chrome right now, but typically I'm all about Safari.
I can get used to Chrome. Here we are. I'm adjustable, maybe too adjustable.
It's the codependency thing. You wedging yourself into the needs of the other person here.
Maybe I love Safari, but I also could love Chrome if it loves me.
Or if it doesn't. I mean, hey, I'm even more if a thing doesn't love me. I'm like, I lean in further.
That's true. Thank
you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I was very excited to get to just talk with you and meet you. And, I've heard so many great things about you from Mandee and Joel.
Oh, you know Mandee and Joel?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
They've been such a support system to me from the beginning out here in LA. Mandee is such a kind person. I mean, Joel's cool too, sure. But the snark, it's so snarky.
So did you do their super serious show? And then...
Yes, that was I'm not sure how, I know your beginnings were different when it comes to live comedy, I suppose. For me, I moved out here just as really a stand-up before I, what would you call it, diversified my talents into writing and other things. But,
sure.
I was always a goal setter. And I remember I had that when I started stand-up in Chicago. I had my list of goals they're mostly venue related,
Yeah,
but I remember moving to LA and really having the super serious show on my goal list. I really wanted to be on that show. So I remember it was at Cafe Fedodo, and I was just obviously very excited. So that was my intro to them, and then got to do Hot Tub over the years and was on that album. Mandee, of course, I've had the joy of her shooting some photos.
Isn't she so great to work with as a photographer? Oh my God, she makes everything so comfortable.
Yeah, she really does. And she took the ones for your show, right?
She did. Yeah, she took everything.
Yeah, I loved them.
Yeah, she's doing it all. She's producing the show and setting up everything. I mean, I don't know how she managed everything, but she did. And Joel, of course.
Yes.
And Joel will be the whole.
Again, I think he loves getting roasted. He's going to love this.
Also, I love that that you're a goal person. I'm a super goal person as well. And I feel like, I don't know why either there's shame associated with being a goal person. So people don't like to come out and say that they are, but I have not come across hardly, nobody wants to say they're a goal person.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I think too, maybe it has to do, I guess maybe it's like the goody two shoes thing that happens in school where you don't want to be the teacher's pet.
Sure.
So, oh, you have gone. It's it's interesting, the bully mentality, I suppose, or how people look at, you get torn down for being an overachiever, or, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think the way that translates into our industry or the entertainment industry in general is oh, you're a climber, or some people give LA a bad rap for being, what's it called? I guess maybe disingenuous, or
sure.
What's the word I'm looking for? People call it, fake. And the word I'm looking for is fake. I always used to say, when I moved here, I am from Ohio and I moved out here from Chicago. And I always used to kind of say, what a great problem to have, that everybody's too nice to everybody else. Yeah. And I think too, it's you can sniff it out. You can tell who's genuine and who's not, and who to keep at an arm's length, and who to become close with. So, I get it. I've spent time in New York as a comic and LA as a comic, and we all have our opinions on things, but it is interesting to think that, oh, you work hard or you strive for something. Boo. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I've been fixated lately on, because my special is called Girl Daddy. And the joke to me was always differentiating a comic from a female comic. If I have kids, I'm just going to make them call me Girl Daddy.
Yeah.
But I was I'm thinking about it in other jobs, and it's well, maybe we'd have, the way this applies to relationships in my mind, and what you and I wanted to talk about is maybe we would have more lawyers and female lawyers and female doctors and female CEOs if when we were studying, instead of just studying, the women were they like a guy, and they're I should study, but maybe I should bake cookies for him so he can study better. You know what I mean? Maybe we would be more focused if we weren't so consumed with another person. I don't know. It's an idea for a joke that clearly I need to work out.
I love that area. I think it's so true. And I love the title of your special.
Oh, thank you. I think it's so hard to commit to.
Did you go back and forth on a couple different things?
I mean, I had other ideas. I guess none of them were as good. I don't know. I can't even remember the ones that were in the running. Your new Beth friend. But it's
a good sign if you can't remember the ones that were in the running.
Yeah, that's true.
You went with the right one. No, I found the special. I thought it was so funny, and also because I was watching it and like thinking, what's going to be fun for us to talk about. And so right off the bat, you start out with talking about some acne.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, we can talk about acne. I have struggled with adult acne for my entire adulthood. It has been like a real struggle, a true struggle, really had impacts on my self-esteem. It's something that I have finally gotten under control, but so that's right off the bat. That's what I thought we were going to talk about. And then of course there was one area after another that I was like, oh no, let's do body image issues. Oh no, relationship with siblings. Oh, family. Oh, weddings. Oh, whatever, like all that kind of stuff. But
I'm so glad you had so many things you wanted to relate to.
Yes. Oh my God. But I hope do you feel good about talking about codependency?
Yes. I'm happy to, I like that you chose that. It's something I haven't really talked about or explored. And so, great. Yes, I'm down.
God, where do we start? Let's do a relationship play-by-play from starting with adulthood, starting with like 18. Can you give me kind of a timeline of your relationships?
Absolutely.
Woo-hoo.
So let's see. I'm trying to think what my love relation. I think if I could just describe it as a whole before I begin, a lot of me has always felt the idea of like, if someone says, I love you, I go, I must too. You know, like that. It's almost like, it feels like my relationships operate like that, kind of what comes to me. A joke I was trying to work out for a while is like, you know, when my relationships and my dating life is like, you know, when a cat brings you like a dead mouse or roadkill and, you know, like a normal person would be like, ew, and kick it away. I'm the person that's like, oh my God, thank you so much. I love it. And like, should I eat it in front of you? And, you know.
Yeah.
So now that's not to say I haven't dated some really great people. I don't mean to think like, oh, everybody comes to me and I just take it and it's bad.
Sure.
You know, like I've dated some wonderful people. And speaking of like 18, trying to think who that would have been. It was a guy I met working at a catering company. He went to a neighboring high school. He was going to UC, University of Cincinnati, and I was going to Miami of Ohio. But we dated long distance, which is so funny to call it long distance because it's like 40 minutes. But and I'm trying to. It's like it's been a while since I thought of that relationship. Mm-hmm. I was kind of, I guess, single in college. I was in love with like this older guy in the theater department who I ended up dating later in life. That was my longest relationship. Oh, and it was also long distance. So I had a history of like a long distance in a way that's sort of like, they can't leave if they're already gone. So I think I did that for a while, the long distance thing. So that would have been 18 was Jason. And I shared that joke with you in the email that we were going back and forth on. But
yeah,
I had a tendency. I say that I'm a Tarzan dater. Like before I let go of one dick, I'm just like swing into the next dick. And there's only a brief period of time where you can catch me. And that was a little bit my life. Like, and I'm not really proud of this, but it's the idea that I would be in a relationship and then maybe my feelings would change, but maybe I'm speculating here on the past, but sure. I think I was too scared to say how I felt. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. They were good people. So I would sort of basically emotionally cheat, set something up with somebody new, and then know that was a go, and maybe even test the waters and technically cheat. But after I did that, I would then break it off with the last person.
Right.
So I would never be two-timing, but well, that's not true. I mean, I would emotionally be two-timing, but I would basically, set up my next play and then test the waters and then end it with the last person. So it's something I'm not proud of doing, but I definitely did that for years and was never alone from probably age 23 until I stopped doing that. I want to say around 30.
Were you just like, okay, I'm done doing this? Or was there an event that kind of set off you?
Maybe it was 32, Jennette. I think it was that I can't let go. So I think, and you know what? I'm interested in how much you even know about codependency, because I'm someone who actually, I went to this healing trauma program that was beneficial.
Ooh.
It's called On-Site. It's in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee. And one of the takeaways from that was perhaps like, you know, you leave with sort of a plan. And one of those was like, check out a CODA meeting.
Oh my God, I've been to CODA. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did. And it's not, you know, there's some uncomfortability there in the sense that it's just like, okay, we're all here. If it doesn't click with you, the program, the literature, what would keep you going back, you know, unless somebody in the group didn't like you, then you had to go back and just try to figure out if you could become friends. No, I'm just kidding. I think I didn't latch onto it. So I didn't continue with it. So you might know more about codependency in general. Mine are more like jokes I make about it. My general knowledge, like what I've absorbed, you know, about what it means to be codependent. And then before this, I Googled it.
No, I went to CODA and it also didn't resonate with me. I felt it was, I don't know whether it was just kind of the group or the literature. I didn't jive with it. So then I switched to SLAW. Have you heard of SLAW?
Yes, I have. But it's only ringing a bell though. Okay.
Sex and love addicts. And I mean, I'm definitely not a sex addict, but love addict, 100%. Like that's me. Okay. So I started going to that program and I felt more connected to it on some level, just the literature. Again, I'm a little wary of like the group think and just the nature of cult is not the right word. It's too, I don't want to pin it on a cult, but it has that feeling of like, I don't know, I'm too rebellious to want to participate in a thing where it's just like, we're all saying the same thing together and holding hands. It's a little, doesn't work with my personality type, I guess. But I loved the literature so much that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to set my ego and judgments aside about like the cultiness. And I'm just going to see if I can benefit from it. I actually got a sponsor, and then my sponsor dropped me when she told me in order to do the program, I needed to do 30 days no contact with my then boyfriend of 2 years. I couldn't do it. Sounded intolerable to me. So I didn't do it. And she was like, okay, well, I'm dropping you. Then I haven't talked to Kimberly since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like an age of being like, if you don't do this NuvaRing commercial, you're gone. I'm dropping you. And you're like, why am I not going to do that commercial? So then I was relationship to relationship. I dated a younger guy who was lovely, very emotionally intelligent, but I felt like we were in different places in our life. Mm. And I stayed too long in that one as well. That's what I do. I know it's not right, but I stay too long because I care about the person and I worry about them and then at my own detriment. And then that makes me sound like I'm some sort of martyr. And then I spiral because I'm like, you're not that special. Who cares? You know what I mean? Anyway, I was like, the pandemic hit and I was like, this is like the world ordering me to be alone. And even still, like, it's like with that sponsor telling you no contact for 30 days. I was like, yeah, but I'm going to text. I'm going to talk. I'm going to explore my options and I'll keep in touch with my ex occasionally. Like, it's that type of thing where I can't let go and just not have any sort of outside attention from someone or something.
Right. Do you feel like you talk to multiple people at once? You kind of have to have options and...
Yeah, I think it's almost like as long as I know that somebody might want me out there, then I'm safe. Right. And the goal would be safe in myself and depending on myself for that type of, I guess, affirmation.
So you're single. How long have you been single?
Not counting that little exploration of a couple weeks with this last guy.
Sure.
I would say March, like officially, like, and I had broken up with him in September. And I had tried to in January of last year. So I knew in January of last year, told him, was very open about my feelings, but then it just kind of kept going.
This is a younger guy.
Okay. And we broke up in August, got back together around Christmas, and I broke up with him again in March. And I had a similar pattern with my previous ex, the on again, off again, as you listened to in my special.
Right.
I feel like I'm turning this into a therapy session and like trying to figure things out, but being very confusing.
No.
Not linear.
I'm following, and I want the map of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel I don't know.
How can we stop you from becoming me?
I think I'm already too far gone, man. I think it was decided when I was 22. So, okay. And so you're always the breaker upper. That part really resonated with me too, because it was such a point of pride for me to have never been the breakup-y, to have always been the breaker upper, or I don't know how to say these.
No, these are official terms. You're
okay, great, cool. It's weird because I would hold on for so long. I relate to the thing you're saying about like, oh, I cared so much about them and I didn't want, even though I couldn't even identify my own feelings, even though they were there, they were just buried. You know, I would say typically I had recognized like, oh, this probably isn't going to work by around month 4. And then I would just stay for 2 more years or so until I would finally, what happened for me would be that I would become so resentful of them. Yeah. That then it was just like a
toxic.
A light switch would just kind of turn on one day. And I'd go, oh, I mean, it's so strange to say, but it felt almost robotic, like clinical to me. I remember one breakup, I had been with a guy for like 2.5 years. It was the most like, it was so passionate, but also he was dealing with mental health issues. I was dealing with mental health issues. It was absolutely toxic. Shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have gone on more than the first month, if I'm being truly honest with myself, but it kept going for over 2 years. And then I remember it was just, I was in a coffee bean and tea leaf standing in line and the switch happened. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go home. I'm going to break up with him. And that's how it's going to be. Just robotic. I walk home, I tell him, and it's just like the most, I mean, I'm not crying. I feel kind of cold at that point. And I think it's just because I was so emotionally depleted that I had nothing left. I think I had cried all the tears that I had in the relationship. So then by the time the relationship's done, I'm like numb. I'm just ready to go to the next one, I guess.
Sure.
You know?
I think that sounds relatable to me too. I think maybe in a similar fashion, like, for example, I was also depleted by the end of it. I always joke that if a woman wrote Jerry Maguire, the famous line would be, "You deplete me." And but I think for me, and again, I'm sorry if it's annoying for anyone listening, if I keep referencing the special, it's not a self-promoting way. It's a way that my special is so personal, and Jennette has watched it now. So like, I feel like I'm referencing it so we can share more like about this topic. So anyway,
totally. Right, when
I say in the special, the cinnamon roll thing, like it's almost like that moment was it was a gift. I was like, I needed you to say something so bad that I had a good enough excuse to get away from you. And by the way, not like he's some sort of awful person, like get away from you, like you're a demon. Sure. I mean, like I couldn't let go. We couldn't break free. And so the fact that he said the cinnamon roll thing and the weight thing, or, the exercising and eating better thing, that was like, thank you for saying that. Cause now I have a good enough excuse to get away. Whereas before it would be like, I'm not feeling it, this or that. And he'd be like, no, but you're my soulmate. We can work it out. And I'm telling you, 3 months in, I was saying stuff like, no, I don't want you to help me work it out. I want to be alone. And then cut to freaking whatever it was 2 years later. I'm convinced that I need him to heal or need him to help me, or I'm not, basically that I can't do it on my own or be safe on my own. Right. And so that's like what you're saying, I'm trying to think for me, like you're saying you were kind of done and then ready for the next one. Yeah. And I guess for me, I'm thinking it's more like I need someone else to love me. I just need to have it there because obviously I'm not providing it for myself. So I guess that's a little bit of the sad part.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I feel I feel really conflicted with it now too, because I am in a healthy thing, which I mean, I didn't even know what healthy meant from previous relationships. Like I thought being really passionate, but it also being tumultuous and toxic, because that's my parents had zero passion, but it was very tumultuous and toxic. But so that was the thing, that was my example of what like love was. So I thought, well, this is normal. And being in something healthy has really put like a mirror up to all the things that I need to change in a good way. I think I've grown a lot, but at the same time, there is this part of me that's like, now I'm 28. So I've been in relationships for 10 years. And of course I hope it works out with my partner now. He's wonderful. But also I wish I could tell my former self to have just been single. Like the past relationships were there was so much pain and so much suffering for way too long that I wish I had just been able to break it off sooner and focus on myself, as they say. But the idea of focusing on myself was scary. And also, do you ever feel this thing of like when people say after a breakup, and it's always, oh, well, now you have time to focus on you. It's like, well, I was focusing on me the whole time. Like I was thinking of my flaws have been glaring to me. I've been trying to work on those the whole, like, it's not like in a relationship, you just press pause on yourself. Right. I mean,
right. I think maybe what they're talking about is for me, like, I sometimes do lose myself in the relationship and cater to them. And to me, or in the past, at least, I think to myself, I got to get out of this, because if I'm in this, I got to give it 100%. And I'm not willing to give that because I don't want to half-ass this relationship.
Yes,
so I better give it my all. And my all means too far, too much. So I'm almost always yearning to be alone, but I freaking loop them in here hard. And so it feels really cold when I pull away for them, because to be in the warmth of me is intense. To be cared for and loved by me. I don't want to call myself too intense because I don't see myself as that type of lover, but
sure.
I am very caring, and I don't mind describing myself that way because I really do care for the people that I fall in love with, and I like being close with them. You can tell you're in love with somebody when you would lick their face. I think the learning lesson here with this last guy is I never felt that for him, but I guess it feels good to realize that the lesson is this. I've always been on the other end, and I've hurt people, of course, because it doesn't feel good to get broken up with, and our mistake is I'm not good enough. I did something wrong. I'm shit or whatever. And it's like, no, it's just, you don't have to like villainize each other. We're just not compatible. So it's not a bad guy or a good guy. I kind of get obsessed with that myself. Like if I hurt you, I'm bad. And I think it goes, you mentioned your parents, and that's obviously like a huge part of delving into why you are the way you are. It's right. Like past your parental relationships that you view growing up, you're a little sponge. Any sort of trauma you might have had as a kid is going to, I don't want to say dictate your romantic relationships, but it has a heavy hand in it. So you're going to recreate patterns until you raise awareness as to why you're doing what you're doing. And my dad's love was a very intense type of love, potentially narcissistic. And I suppose that's why I might be drawn to those types of people. But, I think now that I'm like aware of it, it's like, now what are you going to do with that info? So I'm the singlest I've ever been right now, Jennette.
Is it bringing up like anxiety for you, or are you kind of feeling like, oh no, I can like get comfortable with this?
Yeah, I think I'm a mix of things, thankfully, because I go to therapy. I see a somatic therapist that I really love.
Oh,
and so that's lovely. And I focus on the idea that I've got my sisters and my mom are a big support system. My therapist, I have friends and women around me that, you kind of almost picture in your head like a little support system, maybe a little wall in front of you that protects you. And you have that support for the decisions you make. So I kind of have to just remind myself of that, that I'm not alone. You have this idea like, well, I got to be single. I got to be alone. It's like, you're never alone. You've ideally built a strong support system to remind you. And the most important thing I've been trying to do myself is, it's like, I think some people are maybe tired of hearing about inner child and reconnecting with your inner child and all that, but it's the idea that you're the adult now. And if you're beating yourself up, you're basically, as a kid, I remember being a perfectionist, and, I was a gymnast, and like, combing my hair back perfectly and gelling it. And if I didn't do something perfect, I mean, I straight up remember hitting myself with my brush. I remember biting my hand really hard.
No.
Like,
Poor baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
I remember doing stuff like that. And so I think now if I'm doing that with myself now, like just internally, obviously I'm not hitting myself with a brush over here. But if I'm saying like, you weren't good enough, or what did you do? Or why didn't he like you? Or whatever it is, it's like such an internal struggle that creates such a storm in my head. And I have to remind myself, I'm a freaking adult. And as cheesy as it sounds, or maybe weird to other people, you can sit down with your inner child, that little girl, and say, I've got us. I've learned enough things to know that I can protect us. I can be discerning. Don't hurt yourself like that. We're great. Like we got this.
When was the trauma workshop? Was that recent or was that?
Oh yeah. I accidentally called it a workshop, but it was a healing trauma program.
Okay.
That was, I guess I did it, would have been in 2016 Christmas time or 2017 Christmas time. And yeah, it was experiential therapy, group therapy. And I think my takeaway from that was, you're always learning. You think like, I worked through that trauma. I'm good. It'll hit you again.
God, isn't that the truth?
For you, it'll hit you again in your 30s. The things you're working through now, you're going to have to work through again.
Don't tell me. Oh my God, I just want it to be done, Beth.
I know. Well, I've had moments, where again, people I think sometimes are sick of hearing the word triggered and all this stuff. But there are times where I've been triggered and thought, my God, was all that work I did for nothing? Why aren't I good? I thought I was okay. Or I thought I'm healthy now.
Oh my God. Yes.
So I'm like, damn it. And so it's a constant, work in progress, and you keep working on yourself. But the thing from that takeaway from that program, you're not going to leave there solved or something. But at the time, it was the idea of my stand-up, and it continues to be obviously very personal and vulnerable. But I was talking about things that maybe I wasn't ready to talk about. And my mom, it's generational. My mom had intimate partner abuse and trauma. And basically the therapist said, would you be talking about your mom like that and her story on stage? And my instinct was, oh my God, no. And she's like, then why are you doing it to yourself? So I think for me, I just needed to kind of take a step back.
Yeah.
And think a little more about what I did want to share with the world and what I didn't. Because it was in my nature to just be a little megaphone with my feelings. Right.
So that was the reason then that you went to the program in the first place, was to...
The main reason I went was just, I had, experienced intimate partner abuse myself. And I think I was very public about it, in the sense that, not to name anyone, it was I guess if I have to say my reasons for it, my instinct was to protect other women in my community and sort of share that I would be talking about it on stage. Just let everybody know, I've had a great year career-wise, but I've also been dealing with this, and I'm going to talk about it, okay? Like that type of thing. And I knew that the women who needed to know would know that they should be careful. So, but then it kind of got out of hand. It got away from me, and I couldn't control it. I wasn't expecting that. And that was almost a second trauma. So of being exposed like that. So the point of going to the program for me was just kind of reconnecting with an inner child that had experienced my mom's intimate partner abuse as a kid. And then the idea that I might sort of be like a magnet. I felt like a magnet hurled towards a fridge, and everybody's like, don't stick. And you're like, well, I'm going to stick. Like, there's no stopping this. So it's sort of the idea that you recreate your childhood traumas in a way, and just sort of sifting through all the complicated feelings of that. That's what that was about.
You mentioned the domestic abuse thing, that getting out of hand or out of your control. What do you mean by that?
Like, my story was shared, like, because I was public about it, and my intention being to protect the women in my community and just be forthright, like I'd always been in my stand-up. And I didn't expect it to be so widely shared. And again, like, it sounds ironic to say without my permission when I shared it publicly, because a lot of people, and I dealt with that for many years after interviews with a lot of women being very callous to me. And, oh, well, if you didn't want to talk about it, I'm just talking about your very public post. And it's like, oh God, there's no roadmap. I didn't do that.
Right.
My intentions were one way, and it was taken away from me in a way.
Totally.
And we already, as women, deal with, again, I mentioned some of this in my special, but we deal with like you did it for attention, or didn't you do that for attention? It's like, what are you talking about? Why would I want that type of attention? If anything, it was at great personal risk to my career and what people thought of me.
Right.
I was just trying to do what I thought was the right thing at the time. So, but that's kind of how, and I still feel with that. I'm not a freaking expert. Sometimes you feel like that's why I even mentioned to you, how much do you know about codependency? Because don't you feel like sometimes you almost have to be an expert on what's, I guess, for lack of a better term, oppressing you? So why do I have to be the expert on it? I don't want to be. I don't want to be up here on stage spewing rape statistics, but there's other people who freaking are just willy-nilly saying shit like, I don't know if we should believe all women. Maybe let's believe like 85% of them, like comics saying shit like that. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I guess what you don't realize is that you're actually advocating for women with that joke, because the real percentage is like 3% that are believed. But popular comics saying these things without the knowledge, it's like, why do I have to be the expert, the buzzkill, the feminist, humorless cunt? And you just get to like say whatever you want when it's harmful. Yeah. Like that type of, like, so look, not everyone's going to love what I have to say or my special. And I'm sure there's things that I misstepped, and I can only do my best from my perspective with what I had at the time. So I have to be open. In some ways I got to be strong and not be a sponge for things that are said to me about me. Like that's when the standing up for yourself thing comes in. Like, no, I'm an adult and I don't have to accept that you think that about me. Like, that's your story.
Yeah.
And then other ways, you got to take responsibility for your actions and how you treat people and mistakes, and be open to criticism. So it's obviously a balance, but anyway, I just kind of went off on a tangent. Sorry, Jennette.
No. I loved hearing it. What is this somatic therapy? Is that the thing where it's like distance?
So the way that it's more like, to me, I guess, describing it like a layperson terms, it's touch therapy. So, you can do talk therapy until you're blue in the face. And it's the idea that trauma lives in your body. And until you sort of work on that part of it too, you can't release it or move past it.
I've heard of that type of therapy, and I've been interested in trying it just for my own kind of issues with touch and sensitivity to it and my own stuff. But there was something about the mechanics of it that I wasn't entirely...
Well, are you familiar with that book, The Body Keeps the Score?
Somebody was just telling me about this.
Okay. So it's kind of, again, I'm not an expert. I still haven't finished reading it. And it's actually, speaking of layperson terms, the psychologist who wrote it, he wrote it in such a way that it's not like you're reading an encyclopedia. It's actually quite comprehensible. So that's good. But I'm not summarizing the whole book. Again, I'm just at the beginning of it. But it's a similar idea that, yes, psychology is an inaccurate science. So in order to seek wellness, it's got to be a three-pronged approach. Some people are very anti-drugs or, antidepressants and things like this.
Sure.
Some people don't believe in talk therapy. And other people like me believe in the power of obviously something like somatic therapy or touch therapy. So, and everybody's trauma is different and lives in them differently. So the book, The Body Keeps the Score, for me is basically saying you have to figure out your concoction of whether it's drugs or touch therapy or EDMR or whatever it is, and talk therapy. It's not like diet. And it's basically the holistic approach to mental health, in the sense that it's going to be a variety of different things that get you to where you need to be. And until you acknowledge it, that it's not just going to be one solution or a quick solution. Yeah, it's like the science of the brain and where it lives in your brain, and how it's pretty much, traumas, whether it's a car accident or like, abuse or an event that happened in your life, it does change your brain. So that's kind of the idea behind it. So I was scared the first time I went, because it's like you do talk for the first part of the session. So you get that talk therapy, and then it's let's work. And it's always, may I do this? It's nothing against your will.
Right.
And it's like, it's really comforting. It's not, there's some unpleasant moments, and I think everybody's reactions are different. Yeah, I know that some people have like an intense reaction and like barf, but it's not like, I've never barfed.
That wouldn't be good for me. I have a history of bulimia.
Well, yeah. And I think too, I think that would be potentially healing for you, because that is such a part of your body. And like, not an expert.
Sure.
But that's intense on your body, of course. Like I find that some of my trauma lives in my throat, like the tenseness of it, not being able to speak.
Yeah.
And you can just like physically feel, if we go back to an event together, me and my therapist, my throat physically tightens to the point it's like pain. So it's like going there, being there with her, working through it, talking through it, knowing that you're safe now. It's the idea of separating it, that it's over and that you're safe now, and letting go of it. So that's my layperson description, and I hope I didn't do it wrong.
Do you still feel like now you carry like stress in your throat? Like, is that generally the place for you?
Yeah, and I would say too, in my shoulders, big time, almost up by my ears in a lot of ways. Even in bed, I'll have to go, you're safe, relax. I'm straight up in bed with my if I'm not doing a body check, I'm up here like my shoulders are freaking gripping. And you're like, what is this?
So tight.
Yeah. Do you carry things? Did you notice?
My stomach, my face is a big one, actually. The whole temperature of it fluctuates based on what I'm feeling. If I'm anxious, it'll start feeling cold. If I'm angry or jealous, it'll start feeling very hot.
Yeah.
I guess my whole body temperature really feels like, if somebody touched my leg or something, it would feel super warm or super cold based on how I'm feeling. It's a little jarring, I guess, sometimes, because I'm so stuck. I'm stuck in my body, right? So to have these big fluctuations and not be able, it really is the piece for me where it's like, I now know I can pinpoint my fucking anxiety or my whatever the issue is and correct it logically. I know how to like retrain and say the new thought, but my body is what I really do still struggle with, not knowing how to adjust that and it having such a strong reaction. Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to go, oh, I'm grounded, when my narrative is one way and my body is like doing it's got a different idea.
I've definitely gone to talk therapy at times. Yeah. Like before I was going consistently, I feel like I would go every 7 years and then just like cry a ton. Like, I could go like once every 7 years, sit down, the therapist is like, how are you? And you're like, and you leave feeling better. And you're like, I'm good for another 6 years. Sometimes it can feel like, are you going to help me when you're just doing talk therapy?
Totally. Oh my God. This is sort of somewhat related, but also kind of off topic. But I was really curious in watching your special, of like, because you are talking about such personal events, and you are finding the humor in at times some really difficult areas, like some very difficult areas, but able to make them so palatable and so funny. And is this something where before you go on stage, you're like stressed out about, or even afterward, do you feel like it's difficult or traumatic in any way, or are you just kind of past that because you've done all the processing on your own time? So you feel more just, no, I'm just going out and saying my bits.
That's a great question. Very astute observation, because I'm sure you're even, dealing with your show, your stage show. It's like, and going back to what I learned in that trauma program, which is like, should you be doing this to yourself? Like I've had friends be like, if it makes you so uncomfortable, why are you doing it? And because when I first started talking about, what happened, the evolution of some of those darker topics in my special, one way I was able to put that chunk in there about saying that I'm not going to ruin it for everybody else, but the Irish accent part or the Scottish accent part, it's like the way I was able to do that is because I was making it less about me. Because before, initially, the years prior, I was making it my story very much. And it would cause my hand to shake to the point where I would have to take my right hand that's not holding the mic and trap it underneath my armpit. Whoa. And almost like cover my heart in a way. Another comic pointed that out. They were like, because you're like protecting your heart. And I was like, oh my God, I better, so that it was why I chose to sort of pull away a little more of my personal experience and make it more general. But I would be lying to you if I said it didn't make me very nervous, some of these topics, because I actually added them late. So I guess to answer your question, honestly, there was definitely physical tension and nerves happening underneath everything on some of those topics that I didn't work as long as some of the other jokes, because I added them probably about 3 months before, where I felt like, you know what, I'm putting it in there because I'm passionate about it.
Right. Can we go back to codependency for a few seconds? I know we're running tight on time. Has codependency ever, and I guess you actually kind of touched on it with saying the amount of time spent focusing on the other person, like where could you be if not thinking about them? But do you feel like codependency has disrupted your work in a way? Clearly you've accomplished so much, but has it hindered that at all? Or are there specific incidents where you've not?
100%. I'm standing in front of one right now. The last 2 weeks, I knew that I shouldn't be speaking with that guy anymore. Again, I don't mean to demonize him or something. I knew it wasn't right. I knew we weren't compatible. I didn't want to be with him. Yet the minute he'd be like, hey, you want to grab dinner? I'd be like, be there in 5. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I could feel him pulling away and also feeling basically similar to me, which is valid. And yet I wanted him to really fall in love with me, see me for who I really am. Yet I'm not able to be myself. So how could he? And again, some things just don't match up. But my point being, what's in front of me right now is I'm talking to you, and I'm not like working right now, but I have a script that was given to me. I was hired to do a punch-up job on a movie, and I freaking was having such obsessive thoughts about him for the last 2 weeks. I got a call yesterday from the producer that was like, hey, the studio's asking. And I'm like, I have no excuse, like, except that he took over my brain and it wasn't even right.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even, I'm not being articulate right now, but that kind of goes back to the joke that I was fumbling with at the beginning. Like, he's a writer too. I'm a writer, but I'm over here codependent. I don't want to make it male versus female, because I think men also overthink things, but maybe as a codependent female, I'm over here like, he's writing and getting stuff done. I'm over here with probably like, with an important job. And I'm like, why aren't you focused on your work? And especially on someone who's like not even fulfilling your needs. In fact,
oh my God,
they're breadcrumbing you. And again, I really don't think that's intentional on his part. I'm just saying, like, why are you wasting your time? So yes, absolutely. Once we hang up here, I have to write some freaking jokes. I'm on page 40 of 108. And I got to get it in.
God, the breadcrumbing,
it's definitely hindered. Yeah, it's definitely hindered.
Have there been many times where you've been in relationships where the conversations are very direct? Because a lot of times I feel like guys do this thing when they can sense like any degree of clinginess. First of all, I'm great at hiding my clinginess for like 6 months. I play it so fucking cool. It's great. I'm not myself. And then all of a sudden, once I got him, then the clinginess comes out. And then I feel really shame and a lot of guilt about that. But I wish that direct conversations could happen sooner, where it's like, that's equally on me as it is on the guy, where I wish I could just say like, hey, this is what's going to work for me and what doesn't. And then where the guy can be like, oh, that doesn't work for me, I'm out of here. Or like, cool, great, this is what I need. And there can be some sort of a dialogue. But I feel like the not having direct conversations is one of the main things that creates these unhealthy dynamics. Like, and I think
you didn't share those feelings, because what if you left when you did?
Oh my God, exactly. Yeah. Why would I ever share them when you might leave me? Instead, I'll just I'll internalize and try to make you happy so that you don't leave me. And meanwhile, where am I? I'm nowhere to be seen.
I'm not being and you're not even being yourself.
Exactly.
And the fact that I just did that at my age, which is older than you, is sad. But again, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm just going to say what a good lesson that my first foray, technically single. We weren't, committed or something. It was really just a light thing. But my point being, my first foray into being like a single woman and testing things out, it crashed and burned. And like you're saying, I have had one relationship. It was the one before that with a younger guy.
Yeah.
Very open conversations. It didn't mean that what always needed to happen happened.
Totally.
But I was so transparent with him, and I try to continue to be at a healthy level. But yeah, that was a good lesson, and he received all of that quite well, of just being very open about how I was feeling and where I was at. But some people just can't do that. I yearned for like discussion and trying to figure out things with this guy, but I could not. I'm trying to think of an example. It's almost like he would say something and he'd look at my face and go, "Whoa, you hated that." Meanwhile, I'm like, "What? I don't hate that." So we were just like totally misfiring and not reading each other right, to the point of frustration. And I would say he described it quite well, because I needed almost like an exit interview. I wanted like, well, tell me what I did wrong. And it's like, of course I didn't say that, but I needed like something like that. And I also needed to sort of share like, man, what I did say was, I wish you understood me better. Unfortunately, I never really felt like I knew where I stood with you, and that made me unconfident. And I was very cautious about what I said and did. And in turn, that made you probably not attracted to me. So, but what I really would have liked to say, and I didn't, was, I wish you wanted to understand me better and have a conversation.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because we just couldn't. I mean, we could get into the details, and you and I could just replay the tapes and figure out why. We need to have like, instead of a football session where you replay the game, we need to sit in a room, draw on the TV, see his face here. Like, this is what that meant. Meanwhile, he's over there just finishing his script. So I'm back to feeling like, I have to be discerning and stand up for myself. And I'm not, and also just to sort of say it sooner and not be afraid that then he'll be gone. Like,
fuck yeah. Yes.
I should have, I mean, Jennette, I have a freaking note. I have a note, the Notes app, where I literally wrote it out the day before he was like, I think we should stop talking. I had this whole, like, all basically, like, in the punch up world, you're trying to make a script funnier. So you write what is called alts. I'm saying that for listeners, so I don't sound like some sort of elitist douche. But the point is, I basically have a Notes app filled with alts of any version of, are you cool if we stop talking? I'm not feeling the same way as I was before, but I had fun with you. And I'm telling you, I have like 17 alts for that I never sent. And then he calls and it's like, hey, I think we should stop talking. And I'm like, yeah, why couldn't I do it? So one positive takeaway from this is, I don't have to feel bad or worry about him because he doesn't want to be with me. So that's like the one positive takeaway. I'm over here like, he's sure. And if I'm being real with myself, I was sure. So just let it go.
Do you ever feel like there's this thing that sometimes, like, all the hours that I've spent trying to work on the codependency, and I think, well, at the end of the day, am I trying to work on my codependency so I'm more appealing to a man? Like, is that what's motivating this?
Sure.
Well, I want to leave you to your jokes, your punch ups. Are you excited about doing this? Or are you like?
I did get excited last night, but so the funny thing is, now that you mention it, what was getting me amped and having the energy to do it was just DMing with a new guy. I'm telling you, my phone was to the left of the script, and we're just DMing, having a fun conversation. I'm over here like letting jokes rip and feeling playful. But when I was having those obsessive thoughts about a guy I wasn't interested in, the script sat over here on my desk all weekend, and I did none of it and didn't feel good about myself. So anyway.
Well, yeah, good luck with the script and
thank you.
And the DMs? Question mark?
Yes.
Hope it works out.
Thank you, Jennette. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, it was so fun talking to you too. Thank you for doing this, and I can't wait for everybody to see your special. It's so fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that.